Did you know the American Civil War was one of the bloodiest conflicts in American history? Today in my speech, I will inform you about the causes of the American Civil War. I am credible to talk about this because I have researched it and I have went over it recently in another class. Today in my speech, I will mention abolitionists and secession. Abolitionists were people who were opposed to slavery and tried to put it to an end. Secession was when the states separated from the country. As college students, I feel as though we should know about as many topics as possible, so I'm going to talk about this today. I will talk about 1. Slavery, 2. States' rights and expansion, and 3. Abraham Lincoln. Now that I've told you what I'm going to talk about, let's move on to point 1. My first point is slavery. Slavery was a huge part in the economy in the South. The slaves increased the profit for farmers by increasing the amount of cultivated land, and the slaves were also traded and sold for money by the Southern people. Abolitionists tried to end slavery, which caused a big reaction from the South. Gerald Gunderson said in his article, The Origin of the American Civil War, the reactions of slave owners to the abolitionists was much more than a gesture of regional identity or pride. It was a reaction propelled by the substantial self-interest of an amount much larger than any minimum level at which resistance by the threatened party would be expected to develop. Now that I've told you about my my first point, let's move on to point 2. My second point is about states' rights and expansion. The government extended the old 3630 line. It was a last-ditch effort to end the crisis between the North and the South. The line separated the slave states from the free states. Expansion of the seceded states threatened the Union states. Roger C. Thompson said in his article, Slavery, Sectionalism, and Secession, 6 more years on the debate of the cause of the American Civil War. Previously, it had been allowed to exist with the expectation that it would die out, but in the 1950s, its expansion threatened a permanent corruption of the Union. Now that I've told you about my second point, let's move to point 3. The third point of this speech is Abraham Lincoln. The Southern states greatly opposed Abraham Lincoln's election. Abraham Lincoln was not on the ballot in most of the Southern states, and here is a Republican ticket from Virginia. The president is up here, and the vice president and the district electors on the bottom. Most of the Southern states would not have had Abraham Lincoln's name up on the top at the president. Lincoln overcame this unfair election and went on to win the election. Lincoln also supported the 13th Amendment. He mentioned this in his first inaugural address. Now that I've told you about my third point, let's move on. In conclusion, today I have told you about the causes of the American Civil War. I have told you about 1. Slavery, 2. States' rights and expansion, and 3. Abraham Lincoln. I talked about this because I felt that as college students should know some of the reasons why the American Civil War happened. Thank you for listening to my speech.